Welcome to Journals. Both the Idaho House and Senate are charged with the task of publishing journals that become the official record of their work during a legislative session. Each day of session, the Chief Clerk of the House and the Secretary of the Senate compile and publish a daily journal. At the end of each session, the daily journals are compiled into final journals, the final journal of the House of Representatives, and the final journal of the Senate. Let's start with daily journals. If you think of daily sessions or floor sessions of the House and Senate as meetings, then the daily journals are the minutes of these meetings. Sprinkled throughout the Constitution, adopted rules and statutes are requirements for actions of the body that must be recorded in these minutes. Remember, once a piece of legislation receives a bill number, the bill is then the property of the body. Every official decision about that piece of legislation must be made by the entire body, and this is done during daily floor sessions. Committees can only make recommendations about legislation to the entire body. With this in mind, let's explore daily journals. Daily journals vary in length from less than a page early in the session to dozens of pages later in the session. This is because early in the session, very few bills have percolated up from committee or transmitted from the other house for the entire body to weigh in. And although the body must go through every order of business during every daily session, most of the orders are skipped, with unanimous consent of course, early in the session because there is no business in these orders. Here's a daily journal from early in the session. Here's a daily journal from later in the session. If this looks overwhelming to you and impossible to understand, then you are in good company. Very few people can decipher and unlock the value of information embodied in this document. Those who do gain a powerful weapon in their arsenal of legislative influence. House and Senate daily journals vary slightly in format and language, but the basics are the same. For demonstration purposes, we'll look at a House daily journal. Let's look at the 10 basic components of a daily journal. And remember, the daily journals are organized by order of business, and the orders of business are different in the House and Senate. The first component is basic organizational business. This includes roll call, prayer, pledge, approval of the journal, announcements, and adjournment. Here's an example of how the journal shows the first 3 orders of business in the House. The second component, communications and transmittal of bills between the houses, the governor, and the Secretary of State. In this example, we see a message from the governor and a message with a bill transmittal from the Senate. The third component, communications and transmittal of bills from standing committees. On this journal page, we see 4 reports from committees: Judiciary Rules and Administration, Business, and 2 from State Affairs. Component number 4, introduction and first reading of bills. In the 8th order in the House, bills are introduced and read the first time. Their titles are printed in the journal. Pieces of Senate legislation that are transmitted to the House are shown in the journal by bill number and committee only. Component number 5, introduction and first reading of resolutions, proclamations, and memorials. Unlike bills, resolutions, proclamations, and memorials are printed in full in the journal. This makes sense because they don't have titles like bills. Component 6, second and third reading of bills. Here we see numerous bills in second reading being referred to third reading, and a bill in third reading coming before the body for consideration and passage. Component number 7, full disclosure of all roll call votes regarding motions and bill passage. Every roll call vote is published in the journal. This page shows the roll call vote on 5 bills. Component number 8, actions of the amending order and the printed amendments. The amending order looks particularly intimidating when published in the journal, but it's really just a summary of the actions that were taken during Committee of the Whole, and all of the approved amendments printed in full. Component number 9, miscellaneous motions and business. Scattered throughout the journal are all kinds of information, including conflict of interest declarations, random motions, and here's a summary of the Idaho Day program performed in the House chamber. And the last component, dispositions of each piece of legislation that is acted on during floor sessions. Disposition is an important word to understand. Every time a piece of legislation comes before the body, in each step of the legislative process, it is reported, perhaps considered by the body, and then disposed of to the next step in its legislative journey. Here we see several bill dispositions. Bills being sent to the governor, filed for first reading, filed for second reading, and placed on general orders. The disposition of bills on this page include being sent to printing, referred to committee, filed for third reading, and transmitted to the Senate. Now that you understand their components, you'll want to refer to daily journals regularly. During session, the daily journals for both the House and Senate are published and posted on the legislative website, usually within a few hours of adjournment. And here's everything you need to know about final journals. Final journals are compilations of daily journals. They're published at the end of the session, and they become the official record of the session. Now that you understand the role of legislative journals in the Idaho House and Senate, continue to increase your legislative IQ by studying all of the learning modules in the Legislative Learning Lab.